A deep rip, breaking the hard pan underneath. What we're ending up with is 1, 2, 3, 4 different tree lines. When you have overgrown areas on the edge or the boundary of your food forest, you don't just want to pay attention only to the food forest. You got to zoom out, look at the surrounding vegetation, see what's stagnant. So it's all a really holistic action to maximize our impacts here, maximize our influence. The process is going really well. Crazy, the transformation. But this is what I'm going through, the process to convert an existing orchard, an existing area into agroforestry. This is the last block of the family farm where I have not yet actually converted it into agroforestry. We've got 30 meters by 60, and this is the area that I'm going to be focusing on the most this season with planting, transitioning it into agroforestry. And part of it is because the kiwi fruit are not as profitable as we would like. Kiwi fruit, it's a short person's game. We're tall, it's hard to prune, and we don't actually get the returns just given how much work it is. And so part of what we're doing this year is deleting the kiwi fruit and turning that into agroforestry. We might keep some. We've got some kiwi berries, which would be nice to trial and test with. And then over on this line, we've got a bunch of pears that were overgrown, right? We'll go take a look at the rootstock that were coming up and really drowning the pears out. And then on the far side, we have existing mandarins. And that combination actually works really nicely. At the moment, they're segregated, right? Imagine the kiwi fruit's gone. We've got pears over here and mandarins over there. But because they're different strata, mandarins are a medium strata, pears are an emergent deciduous, complement each other really nicely. Different strata, deciduous for the evergreen, citrus, which want to be ripening through winter. So what we're actually going to do this season is we're actually going to combine them so that the pears extend all the way back, the mandarins extend all the way forward. They're both really reliable crops here. And so that's what we're going to go take a look at, how we're doing that. This is really day one of the process. At the moment, we're removing a lot of the infrastructure. Right, there's a bunch of old wires and old posts from when this place used to be entirely kiwi fruit. Right, this whole farm used to be entirely kiwi fruit, and then the previous owner began retrofitting it into diverse fruit production. And so we're just kind of continuing that journey, transitioning it more into agroforestry. But step one is removing a lot of the old infrastructure, tidying things up. We're actually going to come take a look at the rootstock. So you can see this pear tree right here, and it was actually being strangled by some kiwi, right, from a couple seasons ago. And this is all rootstock, right? This is all rootstock from the pear. So if we come down here, part of the work at the moment is as we're taking the vines down, as we're taking the old wire, we're also kind of looking at how neglected these trees have been over the last number of years. Lots of rootstock. It's keeping these grafted trees for, it's one of the things I see all the time actually when I go to somebody's house or property who doesn't maybe have super familiarity with fruit trees, managing them. I see rootstocks coming up all over the place, and a lot of people just don't know. And so if you actually see, you have a tree, a fruit tree that has kind of what looks like two different kinds of growth on it, it's probably rootstock. And so if you follow the odd growth down, usually it's just more vigorous. So it's clear this work hasn't been done in a long time. These pears have been pretty neglected. That's part of what makes the system healthy, is just getting attention, right? There's this phrase that says the best fertilizer is a farmer's shadow. And so if you're not spending any time in a place, it's not going to do as well as the spaces that you are spending time in. So give yourself an incentive, incentivize yourself to spend time in places. And then I'll come through and I'll just cut this at ground level as best I can, but it really, it's already kind of a mess. Yeah, so that's all the rootstock. And no doubt it's going to shoot up again, but yeah, not ideal. You know, this is more fruiting wood. This is the scion wood that's got certain qualities. That's what you're looking for. And so we're going to clean this up. We're going to give these a nice little shape prune. They've been neglected. And so this whole back area really is going to get reset, planted with a huge diversity, extending the pears, extending the mandarins, and incorporating a bunch of other diversity support species and just making the most out of the space. And so keep an eye out this season. This is going to be what I'm working on the most on the farm. And so these are some of the mandarins that the previous owner planted in the south area, right? For those of you in the northern hemisphere, just think reverse. But these are the mandarins, 3 lines, and there's a lot of space. You can see there's these huge gaps. There's a gap of like 15 meters right here where it's just a bunch of old kikuyu, right? For those who are familiar with kikuyu, it's a nightmare. When we first moved here, these trees were being drowned in kikuyu, right? The kikuyu climbs up and it like pulls trees down. We've been doing a bit more maintenance, bit more management back here, but I haven't really converted any of this into agroforestry. I've been mostly focused on blocks 1 and block 2. And so this year, have the energy, time for the kiwi fruit to go, bring the pears back into the mandarins, push some mandarins forward, as in buy new mandarins and fill them up. And it might not be mandarins, it might be blood oranges, it might be lemonades, it might be all these different kinds of citrus, but that's going to be the pattern, whether it's pears and mandarins, whether it's apples and other citrus varieties, but that's the pairing. And what you're looking for when you're planning, especially with a commercial direction, right? You don't want to be going so diverse that you can't make a profit. Looking at how to make agroforestry profitable, and one of the best ways of doing that is having a focus. It's impossible to like do anything well if you're so spread thin, you're not focusing your attention, your energy, and it takes a lot of information. You have to learn pest and disease pressure, pruning cycles, harvesting cycles. You have to learn so much stuff about any particular crop. If you imagine then trying to do that for 12 different species as you're just getting started, like yes, diversity is great as you're starting out, you're learning what works well on your site, but as you start expanding, citrus and pears, apples work really reliably here. That's what's going to look like. It's going to be an exciting season. You'll see more of how this area transitions and develops over the coming months. Let's grow. It's been a few days, we've made some updates and I want to share. One of them is we had to use the sawzall to get the kiwi vines out. Pulling with the tractor, as you could see, did not work. They were too firm in there, so we just went around and cut all the roots out of the kiwi fruit to rip them out. They're actually right over here in a pile, you can see. This is the pile of a bunch of old kiwi vines that we've just ripped out of this. All the tops of the kiwi fruit, the vines that we pruned down, because it started as a jungle, and then the flail mower from the tractor came through and chipped them all up. Fantastic. And now since we've removed the actual vines out of the line, we can begin preparing for planting trees with an exciting new implement that we're going to show you at the end. What we're ending up with is 4 different tree lines. They're spaced about 3.5 to 4 meters apart. A little bit inconsistent spacing, but again, that's okay. And so we're nearly there. But one of the key important things that we're having to do first that I want to explain is this windbreak. This behind me is a windbreak of Feijoa, and it's really great at being a windbreak, but the problem is this: it's stagnant, and you probably have stagnant trees on your farm or on your land somewhere, and what they do is they slow the growth of everything else that's around them, right? They have a zone of influence that basically, if you take the height of the tree or you take the height of those Feijoas and you lay them on their side, anything that falls within that is the zone of influence. And so there were actually pears that we saw early in the video planted along those Feijoas, and they hadn't grown at all. They hadn't grown in the 5 years that we've been here. They hadn't grown one bit because of that stagnant influence from the Feijoa. And so by pruning the Feijoas, we're actually going to bring some sunlight, but also the growth pulse, right? Everything's going to regrow on that same page, the hormone response, and the new sunlight. But what we've done is we've actually taken the pears out of that line. Initially, when we were just taking all the root stock off the suckers, we've actually dug the pears up, because what we're going to do is we're going to take that special implement that we have, I'm going to show you. We're actually going to be able to run and prepare the entire line at once with that. Now, how am I pruning these Feijoa? How am I pruning the shelter? What essentially you want to do is when you have overgrown areas on the edge or the boundary of your food forest, you don't just want to pay attention only to the food forest. You got to zoom out, look at the surrounding vegetation, see what's stagnant, see the Feijoas. There's actually bamboo way down there on the back. We're going to do the same thing to the bamboo. We're actually going to go through and we're going to prune the bamboo, a lot of it to ground level, throw that through a chipper as well. That's what we've been doing with the Feijoas. You can actually see right here. These Feijoas are providing a ton of really nice, fresh, organic material that are going to feed the system, as well as the new sunlight, the new growth pulse that's going to emerge from pruning those. So it's all a really holistic action to maximize our impacts here, maximize our influence. And so what that's done, it's opened up this final pear line for us. We're actually going to still remove these posts with the tractor. We're going to have a line here, 2, 3, and 4. And so in terms of design, what trees are we putting in? We haven't yet outlined and fully detailed how exactly the orientation and the layout is going to be for this new planting area, what fruit trees and where, what spacings. That'll come. It's actually going to be part of the training that we're doing in person here early October. I don't know when you're seeing this, but that training is going to be happening right here. And so we're doing a lot of the prep work, preparing the Feijoas. We're mulching these. We're going to keep hammering them back. So we're still getting the benefit of some shade and shelter, but not the stagnant influence. And so pruning basically in like a V shape along that side, and we would do the same on that side if we had stagnant vegetation, and the same with the bamboo, taking the tallest stuff that's closest to the system to really just reduce that stagnant influence. That was one of the big mistakes that I made actually in the very first year. The first systems that I planted, they were underneath this big 100-year-old plum tree way back over there, and the problem with that is there's a stagnant influence, so the things underneath and right beside the plum grow slower. But the problem also, the secondary problem of that is when you eventually do need to prune the plum or whatever stagnant tree, you have a lot higher risk of damaging whatever is underneath it that's now small and sensitive that you've just planted. And so it's better to do this work now rather than sending down these big branches that could potentially crush 6-month-old trees or 6-month-old plants. Do it before, make use of the organic matter, the new sunlight, the growth pulse, do it up front, pay attention to the boundaries. So that's one of the big things here. But obviously the process is going really well. Crazy, the transformation, handful of working days we've had out here, going from this overgrown kiwi fruit jungle into what is almost ready to be prepared and planted. So that's one of the next steps, just finishing up the Feijoa pruning. You might see a little bit more of that, but really that's it until planting time. You'll see that in a separate video, but this is what I'm going through, the process to convert an existing orchard, an existing area into agroforestry. Hope that was helpful. This is the exciting piece of equipment. You thought I forgot? I didn't forget. I told you we'd show you. Single tine subsoiler. And this is going to be on the back of the tractor, helping us decompact, removing the hard pan of compaction, because especially when you have land that's been cultivated for a long time, yes, you can always cultivate the surface, like surface cultivation, surface decompaction, but getting a deep rip, breaking the hard pan underneath, because what happens is when you constantly cultivate, all the hard little stones are falling just below that level that your cultivator is reaching, and it compacts that layer just below. And so using this breaks that up. It's going to allow for a really healthy, fast tree establishment. I've used this on another project already. Phenomenal. So subsoiler, it's in our hands. It's very heavy. Excited to use this for the installation coming soon. And that's part of why we wanted to remove the existing pears and why it was important not to just cut the kiwi fruit down, but remove the stumps so we can properly get through the tree lines. This is heavy. Move to the next video. It's going to be a good one. See you there.